sound comes again, measured, almost polite, like the ticking of a grandfather clock, or the way Nana used to knock before letting herself in, even when she had a key. Emma doesn't move. Breath curls in front of her face. It's freezing inside. Her phone lies dead beside her, screen black. The fire's gone out. The window is just glass now, not a barrier. Frost creeps along its edges like roots. Tap, tap, tap. She turns her head slowly, the way you'd turn toward a stranger saying your name in the dark. Just a window, just... No, not just. Not anymore. The silhouette outside isn't moving, but it's closer than it was. She's sure of that. And there's something wrong with the shape. Too tall. Neck at the wrong angle. One hand gently raised, not knocking, not even pushing. Just waiting. 36 hours earlier, Emma was arguing about parsnips. Danny, I swear to God, if you pack the wrong ones again, they're just parsnips. Danielle huffed from the back seat, coat rustling as she dug through a tote bag. They don't have personalities, Em. They do if you're roasting them with honey and rosemary. You can't just bring the anemic ones, they go soggy. I didn't know you were sleeping with a root vegetable, Jess said, elbowing Emma gently. Should I be worried? Only if you start tasting like starch and childhood disappointment, Emma replied. But her eyes didn't leave the screen of her phone, where the booking confirmation still glowed reassuringly. One bar of signal. Enough. Luke made a sound that might have been a chuckle, though with him it was hard to tell. He was focused on the road, hands steady on the wheel, eyes narrowing as the tires crunched over another patch of frozen slush. The world outside was all white and slate, bare hedgerows, low dry stone walls. The occasional sheep looking like it regretted every choice it had ever made. Do we even trust this place? He asked, not for the first time. I mean, no reviews. Weird listing name. The Hearthwatch Cottage? Sounds like a cult retreat. Emma didn't look up. It's listed under 2 different names depending on the platform. Probably just a glitch. And it had a cancellation discount. We're lucky. Or cursed, Danny offered, finally producing a half-squashed bag of parsnips with a triumphant noise. Ta-da! Slightly deformed, but emotionally available. Jess reached over the seat to grab one and held it up. This one's got a knob on the end. Looks like it's giving us the finger. Emma sighed, biting back a smile. She'd triple-checked everything. The listing, the location, the weather. She needed this to go right. A proper Christmas. No mom, no dad, no awkward family Skype calls. Just them. Rituals on their own terms. They turned off the main road onto a narrower track, tires slipping slightly before gripping again. Trees leaned in, skeletal branches brushing the car as they passed. The sat-nav had stopped speaking 10 minutes ago. Jess had joked that even Google Maps had abandoned them. Almost there, Emma said, watching the little blue dot inch toward a clearing. Her stomach fluttered with something between excitement and anxiety. The cottage appeared like a trick of the light. One moment just trees, the next a squat stone building with a crooked porch, roof outlined in thick snow. Smoke curled faintly from the chimney, though Emma didn't remember reading anything about a fire being lit before arrival. Quaint, Luke said, pulling up beside it. Or haunted. Could go either way. They piled out, boots crunching on the icy gravel. The air smelled sharp, peat smoke, frost, and something else. Metallic, like old pennies or blood in the back of your throat. Emma wrinkled her nose. Bit nippy, Jess said, hopping from foot to foot. Anyone else smell copper? It's just the stove, Emma said, more firmly than she felt. She held up her phone. The confirmation page still glowed, but as she glanced at the map, the blue dot flickered. For a second, it jumped. Not to the cottage, but to a cluster of trees behind it. Then it corrected. She blinked. Probably a GPS thing. Inside, the cottage was cold and dim, but charming in a worn storybook way. Low beams, mismatched furniture, a big stone fireplace with a stack of logs beside it. The kitchen was tiny, but serviceable. The bedrooms had patchwork quilts and drafty windows. Emma felt her muscles begin to unclench. They unpacked quickly, slipping into the comforting rhythm of shared tasks. Jess lighting candles, Danny fussing with the fairy lights she'd insisted on bringing, Luke checking the firewood. Emma laid out the food in neat rows, ticking items off her mental list. In the lounge, a guestbook sat on a low table. The cover was worn leather, edges curled like dry leaves. Jess flipped it open and made a face. Someone spilled something on this, or bled on it. Hard to say. Emma leaned over. A few pages in, there was indeed a smear, reddish-brown, dried and flaking. A photograph was tucked in the middle, half torn and faded. A family, maybe. Hard to tell. Faces smudged. One corner was burnt. Danny took it, frowning. "Why would you leave this in a rental?" "Atmosphere?" Jess offered, deadpan. Emma reached over and closed the book. "It's just a guest book. People are weird." They cooked dinner together, roast veg, sausages, and aggressively buttery mash. The oven ran hot and the thermostat didn't work, but there was wine and the fire finally caught. By the time they were eating, the room felt almost cozy. Jess kicked her feet up on the ottoman. "Okay, I take it back. Not haunted, just aggressively rustic." Luke was leaning against the wall, sipping from a chipped mug. "Not sure I trust a fire that took 4 attempts to light." Emma poured herself more wine. "It's fine, we're fine. We're making memories." Danny raised her glass. "To family you choose." They clinked. The moment held, warm and golden. Later, the others drifted toward bed, but Emma lingered, tidying up. She couldn't sleep yet. The fire had died down again. The metallic smell lingered faintly, threaded through the warmth. She was halfway to turning off the lamp when she heard it. Tap. She froze. It came again. Tap. Tap. Not loud, not urgent, just steady. She turned toward the window. Nothing there, just snow and dark. Tap. Her skin prickled. She stepped closer, heart thudding. "Jess?" she called softly. "Danny?" No answer. Just the tap. Then silence. She pressed her hand to the glass. Cold. Nothing moved. She stayed there a moment longer, breath fogging the pain before shaking her head. Must be a branch or the wind. Or the house settling. Old places did that. Still. That night she dreamt of footsteps in snow and fingers, tapping a nursery rhythm against glass. When she woke, she wasn't sure if the sound had been in the dream or outside it. By morning, the snow had deepened. The cottage was quiet. Jess's laughter echoed faintly from the kitchen. Danny was humming as she made coffee. Luke was outside, chopping kindling with the kind of focus that suggested he needed the distraction. Emma stood at the window watching the trees. The GPS dot was gone. The map wouldn't load. She tried again. And again. No signal. No dot. Just blankness. Behind her, the guest book lay open again, though she was sure she'd closed it. The photograph was gone. Tap. Tap. This time it came from the back of the house. Tap, tap. Emma turned from the window slowly, her fingers still curled around the cold edge of her phone. The screen remained blank. No signal, no map, no digital breadcrumbs to tether them to the world outside. She padded down the hallway in thick socks, the old floorboards sighing beneath her. The sound hadn't come again, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Not the sharp attention of a person, but something softer, hungrier, like the stillness before a snowfall, when the air waits to collapse. The others were in the kitchen, Jess perched on the counter, eating cereal straight from the box. Danny still humming tunelessly as she stirred milk into mugs. Luke stomped in from the back door, cheeks red from the cold and arms dusted with snow. "Kindling sorted," he said, brushing off his coat. "And someone really ought to fix that back step. Nearly went through it." Emma hesitated. "Did you hear anything? Just now?" He paused, glancing at her. "Like what?" She shrugged. "Tapping? From the back?" Jess grinned around a mouthful of cornflakes. "Ooh, classic haunting escalation. First the window, now the back door. Next, it'll be the taps running blood." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Helpful?" Danny handed her a mug. "Probably just the pipes. This place is ancient. The plumbing's probably held together with duct tape and hope." Emma forced a smile, but her hand trembled slightly as she took the cup. Steam curled up, masking the faint tang still lingering in the air, something sharp and metallic, just beneath the scent of coffee and toast. "Anyway," Jess said, hopping down, "I brought something to spice up tonight." Danny groaned preemptively. "Oh, no." "Oh, yes," Jess said, digging into her overnight bag. With a dramatic flourish, she pulled out a battered box with faded lettering. "Jess, no," Danny said, already laughing. "Oh, God," Luke muttered. "Please tell me that's not—" "A genuine Parker Brothers Ouija board," Jess announced, tapping the lid. "Authentic suburban seance edition. Got it off eBay from a woman in Kent who swears it once told her dog to kill her husband." Danny snorted. "And you thought this was a good idea to bring here?" Jess winked. "Thought it'd liven up the rustic vibes. Come on, it'll be fun. Light some candles, summon a Victorian child ghost. Maybe learn our death dates." Emma sipped her coffee, watching them bicker. The warmth from the mug seeped into her palms, but her skin still felt cold. Not from the house, from inside. "I'm in," she said finally. Danny blinked. "Seriously?" Emma gave a tight smile. "Better than waiting for the radiators to start bleeding." Luke groaned again, but didn't protest. He never did, not really. He just watched Jess with that wary fondness, like someone observing a cat poised to knock a glass off a shelf. That evening, after dinner and too much wine, they set up in the sitting room. The fire crackled weakly in the grate, struggling against the chill that seemed to settle deeper with the dark. Jess lit 4 candles, one for each side of the board, and turned off the lamps. The flames flickered in the draft, casting long shadows that danced along the sagging walls. Emma sat cross-legged opposite Jess with Danny beside her and Luke reluctantly completing the circle. The planchette sat in the center of the board, its plastic edges dulled from years of use. Jess grinned, eyes gleaming in the candlelight. "Spirits of the lake and wood, spirits of this haunted hood." "Oh my God," Danny said, giggling. "We summon thee to come and chat. Or knock once if you're a cat." Luke shook his head. "This is ridiculous." Jess raised her eyebrows. "You want to go first, skeptic?" He rolled his eyes, but placed his fingers lightly on the planchette. The others followed. For a moment, nothing happened. Just the fire cracking, wind brushing against the window panes, and the faint creak of old timber. Then the planchette twitched. Emma stiffened. "Was that—" "I didn't move it," Jess said quickly. "Neither did I," Danny murmured. It slid again, slowly, deliberately. "E." "Okay," Luke said, starting to pull back. "Someone's pushing." "No one's pushing," Jess said, voice suddenly low. "A." "Emma," Danny said softly. "It's spelling your name." Emma's breath caught. The planchette hovered, then jerked to the center of the board. Then again. W-A-T-H-N-G. It paused. Then with a violent scrape, it shot to goodbye. The candles sputtered. One went out with a hiss. Jess swore and jerked her hand back. "Okay, what the actual hell?" Luke stood up, brushing his palms on his jeans. Right. That's enough of that. Did anyone else feel that? Danny asked. It was cold, like really cold. Just for a second. Emma sat frozen. Her fingers tingled, not from cold, but from something that felt deeper, like the buzz of static after touching a live wire. She glanced at her phone. She'd taken a photo just as the planchette moved to goodbye. A stupid reflex. But now she pulled it up, needing to see it. The image blurred as it loaded. Then again. She frowned. The photo warped. The center smeared into a jagged spiral. Lines repeated, like a pattern etched by a shaking hand. Tap, tap, tap. She zoomed in. The distortion formed a kind of rhythm, almost like a fingerprint. Or, Emma? Danny asked. You okay? As she showed them the screen. This is the photo I took. It was clear a second ago. Jess squinted. That's not right. Luke leaned over. Is that tapping? Emma nodded. It's like it recorded a sound instead of an image. That's not how cameras work, Danny said, voice thin. They all jumped as something knocked against the front door. Once, twice, 3 times, tap, tap, tap. No one moved. Then softly, so soft it might have been imagined, a voice, high, threadbare, like cloth dragged over broken glass. Let me in, Danny whimpered. Luke moved first, striding to the door and sliding the bolt with a sharp clack. Then he added the chain. Probably a prank, he said too fast. Some local kid or sound bouncing. No one knew we were coming, Emma said. Jess stood slowly, arms wrapped around herself. We booked this through a site. Maybe the listing, maybe it wasn't private. Emma turned her phone screen toward them. I tried checking the booking confirmation earlier. Look, the email app showed no results. No trace of the confirmation, no calendar entry, no receipt. She tapped her inbox again. Still nothing. Danny opened her own phone, fingers trembling. I screenshotted the directions. They're gone. Jess's voice cracked. Mine too. It's like it never happened. Another knock. This time from the side window. Tap. Luke grabbed the poker from the fireplace. Right. We're not splitting up. No one opens anything. I want to leave, Danny said. We can't, Emma said. The car's stuck. The snow's too deep. And we don't know where we are anymore. The room fell silent. Even the fire seemed to shrink, its glow dimming as if cowed. Jess stepped back toward the table. The Ouija board sat untouched, planchette askew. Do we burn it? She asked quietly. Luke shook his head. It's not the board. Emma stared at the door. It's the place. They moved as one, checking locks, drawing curtains, dragging the ottoman and chairs in front of the entrances. Jess shoved her overnight bag against the cat flap, muttering to herself. Danny pulled the phone cord from the wall and tried reconnecting it, hoping for a dial tone that never came. Later, huddled in blankets, they sat in the sitting room with the fire relit and a knife beside each of them. It was ridiculous. It was all ridiculous. But the tapping didn't come again that night. They didn't sleep, not really. At some point, Emma opened her phone again. The corrupted photo had changed. The tapping marks had spread outward. Not just a spiral now, but a pattern, a door, a house, a set of windows, and 4 small figures inside. She turned off the screen. Jess whispered, "Did it move?" Emma didn't answer. Outside, snow fell, soft, relentless. The cottage held its breath. The fire had long since burned to coals. Emma stared at them, eyelids heavy, muscles leaden, but she didn't dare close her eyes. The others were breathing quietly around her, too shallow for sleep, too steady for panic. The air in the room had the stillness of a held breath. Even the storm outside had dulled to a hush, as if the snow had blanketed not just the world, but sound itself. Then came the sound. Not tapping, not tentative. A crack, like wood splitting under weight. Emma's head snapped up. Jess sat bolt upright, clutching the handle of the kitchen knife in her lap. Another crack, louder, closer. Danny whimpered and pressed herself against Luke, who'd already pushed back the blanket and was moving. He had the fireplace poker in hand again, the iron dark with soot and warped at one end. His boots thudded softly as he moved toward the hallway. Emma followed, heart slamming against her ribs like it wanted out. The hallway light flickered once, then died. A gust of cold air hissed under the doorframe. Then came the tapping again, but not at the door. The back window. Tap, tap, pause, tap. Jess whispered, "That's the kitchen." Luke moved faster now, boots crunching on something brittle as he passed the old rug. Emma caught up just as he rounded the corner. The kitchen window was black, not dark, black, as if something huge was pressed against it, blotting out the moonlight. Then the shape shifted, and Emma saw it clearly for the first time. A face, or what used to be one. Skin like wax left too close to fire. Drawn tight and cratered, with hollows where cheeks should be. Its eyes were pale, not white, but the color of scum ice. Clouded. Still. The tapping came from one hand, long and thin, fingers curled, like twigs tapping with the knuckle against the glass. It watched them. No, it waited. Danny made a choking noise behind them. Emma reached back blindly, found her hand, squeezed it hard. "Is it human?" Jess asked, barely audible. The thing blinked. Then the glass shattered. It didn't punch through. It pressed until the pane buckled and cracked, spiderwebbing outward with a high, whining squeal. Then the frame gave way and the thing poured through, shoulders folding like bone had no say in it. It landed in a crouch on the tiled floor, head tilted. It was tall, gaunt, wrapped in something that might once have been a coat, now stiff with frost and dirt. Its fingers were slick with something darker than water. Luke swung the poker hard. It connected with a sickening crunch, bone on iron, and the thing staggered. But it didn't scream, didn't flinch, just righted itself and moved again, fast this time. Luke shoved Danny behind him and swung again. The poker caught the creature's arm, snapping it at the elbow. The limb hung loose, flapping as it lunged. Emma grabbed the bread knife off the counter. Jess had already pulled open the drawer and was hurling cutlery. Forks, a rolling pin, a tin of custard powder that exploded in a puff of yellow dust. Danny screamed. The creature turned its head, not toward the sound, but toward the photograph, magneted to the fridge, a picture of the four of them at the service station, mugs of tea, tired smiles. It reached for it. Luke tackled it before it could touch the photo. They went down hard. The thing thrashed beneath him, limbs too long, too wrong. Its mouth opened, not to bite, but to exhale. A reek like rotting peat and copper filled the kitchen. Luke gagged. Emma grabbed his arm. "Out! Get out!" They stumbled back. Jess pulled Danny by the wrist. The creature lurched to its knees, one arm still hanging limp. It turned to look at them. No anger, no expression at all. Just patience. The front door shook. Tap, tap, tap. Then a splintering sound as the doorframe cracked. Emma screamed, "We have to go, now!" They ran, boots on wood, then on snow. The door hadn't been locked from the inside. It had been barricaded. Luke threw the ottoman aside. Jess kicked the door open with both feet. Snow blew in, thick and blinding. The porch sagged under their weight as they bolted through it. Behind them, the sound of wood cracking open, like ribs splitting under pressure. The Jeep was half buried. Danny scrambled to the driver's side, yanking the handle. "Keys! Where are the keys?" "Inside," Jess shouted. "Coat pocket." Emma turned. The thing stood in the doorway now, silhouetted by the firelight behind it. Another shape moved behind it. And another. She didn't think. She ran back into the house. Coat, hook, pocket, keys, and then a hand on her shoulder. She turned, swinging the knife. Not a pale one. Luke. "Don't ever do that again," he said, voice raw. "Go." They ran back out, slamming the door behind them. The porch groaned. Behind the windows, the creatures moved with that same slow inevitability, as if chasing wasn't required. Just waiting. The engine stuttered twice before it caught. Danny's hands were shaking so hard the keys jangled in the ignition. Jess climbed into the passenger seat, Emma and Luke in the back. The Jeep shuddered as Danny reversed hard, wheels spinning in the snow. Then they were moving. They didn't look back. Until they had to. A thud on the roof. Emma gasped. Jess turned in her seat. Luke swore under his breath. A shape clung to the roof rack. Fingers wrapped around the metal bars like roots. A pale face hung upside down over the windshield, inches from the glass. Tap. It knocked once, very gently, on the windscreen. Danny screamed. The car veered, skidding on the icy road. The tires caught again. The thing reached forward, its hand cracking the glass. Luke opened the back window and grabbed the ice scraper from the footwell. "Get the hell off!" He jabbed it upward once, twice. The creature hissed. Not a vocal sound, but air pulled sharply through collapsed lungs. The glass cracked again, lines spidering outward. Emma grabbed the torch from the seat pocket and flicked it on. The beam hit the creature full in the face. It recoiled just slightly, and in that second, the Jeep hit a pothole. The creature lost its grip. It rolled off the roof and vanished into the snow. No one spoke. Danny drove, 10 minutes, then 20. The road was barely visible, snow swirling in every direction. The Jeep's heater coughed lukewarm air. Luke was gripping his arm. Emma noticed the blood. "Luke," she said, "you're bleeding." He looked down. His jacket sleeve was torn. Beneath it, a gash ran from elbow to wrist, shallow but wide. The skin around it was grayish, not pale, gray. The blood was thick, almost sluggish. "Jesus," Jess muttered. "We need to clean that." Emma dug in the first aid kit. "Hold still." She poured antiseptic on it. Luke flinched. The skin didn't. It didn't even pink. "Is it cold?" she asked. He nodded. "Can't feel it." Emma pressed her fingers to the skin near the wound. It was like touching a freezer pack, firm, dry, cold. Not blood cold. Something else. "Let's just get to the petrol station," Danny said, voice thin. "We'll call someone." "Who?" Jess asked. "You think anyone's going to believe this?" "I don't care," Danny snapped. "We're telling someone. We're not going back. We're not—" She stopped. Up ahead, lights. The petrol station sat like a beacon in the whiteout, fluorescent and ugly and blessedly ordinary. A lorry idled nearby. Someone inside was restocking shelves. Danny pulled in hard, tires skidding slightly. They burst out of the Jeep like a dam breaking. Emma helped Luke out. His arm was shaking now, not from pain. He said it didn't hurt, but from something else. Inside, the warmth hit like a slap. The man behind the counter looked up, startled. "Bloody hell. You lot all right?" "No," Emma said. "Call the police, please." He blinked at the blood on Luke's sleeve, at Danny's wild eyes, at Jess's scraped knuckles and Emma's dirt-smeared face. Then he reached for the phone. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed. Luke sat in a plastic chair, his wound wrapped in gauze now, though the skin beneath remained a worrying shade. He didn't shiver, didn't sweat, just sat very still, watching the door. Jess paced. Danny hovered near the counter, explaining in a voice that trembled but didn't break. Emma stood near the window, looking back the way they'd come. The road was empty, but in the snowdrift near the edge of the forecourt, a shape, long, thin, almost human. She blinked and it was gone. Tap, tap, tap. No sound. Just the memory of it. She didn't say anything. Not yet. Tap, tap, tap. The police car arrived with its lights off. Just the crunch of tires on slush and the grim shape of authority sliding into place. P.C. Reeves stepped out, coat already damp at the shoulders, and took one look at them before sighing, not in surprise, in familiarity. He didn't ask what happened. Not at first. Just checked Luke's arm, raised an eyebrow at the makeshift bandage, then nodded once and said, "Let's get you warm. Ambulance is on its way." Inside the staff office, they were offered tea, instant, overstewed, poured into paper cups with that faint petrol tang clinging to the steam. Reeves took his with 2 sugars. Emma didn't touch hers. Luke sat by the radiator, gaze fixed on the floor. His fingers tapped, slow and even, on the metal grill. The sound was just audible beneath the hum of the heater. Emma wanted to scream at him to stop. Danny gave her statement first, voice clipped and fast, like she was racing to get it all out before something broke. She started with the tapping, the noises at night, the storm, the thing at the window. When she got to the part where the door cracked open and the hollowed started to come through, Reeves held up a hand. "Hang on," he said. "The what?" "They weren't people," she said. "They looked like people, but they weren't. Skin like wax, eyes empty. And they tapped, always tapping, like a clock." Reeves didn't write that bit down. Emma knew because she watched. Jess went next, and her version was more scattered, more visceral. She talked about the screaming, the snow, the shadows moving wrong. When she mentioned the guestbook, Reeves frowned. "What guestbook?" "The one in the sitting room, old, with names, photos." "Did you take a picture?" Emma nodded. "Yeah, I did." She pulled out her phone, hands shaking slightly, and opened the gallery. The photo was gone. She blinked, closed the app, opened again. Nothing. Not even a black square, just gone. Jess came over to look. "Wait, didn't you? I saw you take it." "I did." "Maybe it didn't save," Danny offered. "Too fast." Emma scrolled. "No, I saw it earlier. I showed you, remember?" Jess nodded. "It had that weird smear over the face." Reeves exhaled through his nose. "You've all had a shock. That kind of thing can mess with memory." "I'm not misremembering," Emma said sharply. "It was there." He didn't argue, just made another note. The ambulance arrived 20 minutes later. Luke didn't resist when they loaded him in, but Emma noticed he didn't look at anyone either. His eyes were glassy, not unfocused, just elsewhere. He didn't flinch when they cut away the bandage, didn't wince when they cleaned the wound again. The nurse gave him a funny look, but said nothing beyond a clipped, "You're lucky it's not deeper." The hospital was small, the kind that still had faded murals and pediatrics and vending machines with curly sandwiches. They stitched Luke up in A&E, then moved him to a side room to wait out observation. One of the nurses tried to make a joke about Christmas chaos and icy pavements. None of them laughed. Emma sat beside Luke's bed while Danny and Jess spoke to a doctor. Luke stared at the ceiling. His fingers tapped the blanket, slow and steady. "Are you doing that on purpose?" she asked. He stopped, looked at her. "I don't know," he said. She reached out and touched his forearm. Still cold, still dry like freezer-burned meat. "You said you couldn't feel it. I still can't." "Luke, I know." He turned his head, finally meeting her eyes. "I know something's wrong." Emma swallowed. "Then why aren't you freaking out?" His smile was thin. Because I think if I start, I won't stop. She didn't have an answer to that. Outside, the corridor buzzed with low voices and movement. Somewhere, a child cried. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and overcooked peas. Danny returned first. She looked pale, mouth drawn tight. They're calling the local station to file the report, but they're saying the property doesn't match any active rental listings. Emma frowned. What do you mean? I mean, it's gone. The site we booked it through? The listing isn't there anymore. And when I checked my email, the confirmations disappeared. Jess pulled out her phone. I screenshotted it, just in case. She opened her gallery. Blank. Just a white square where the image should be. I saw it, Emma said. I swear to God, I saw it. Reeves appeared in the doorway as if summoned by their disbelief. You're not mad, he said. They all turned to look at him. What? You're not mad, he repeated. Not exactly. He stepped inside, shut the door behind him. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I've heard stories like this before. Not often, but enough. He looked at Luke. People who come back, wrong. Jess bristled. He's not wrong. Reeves didn't flinch. Didn't say he was. Just said it happens, usually after a place like that. Isolated, old, records get confused. Photos don't stick. And if someone makes it out, they don't always come back the same. Danny's voice was barely above a whisper. What do you mean? He sat down opposite them, elbows on knees, hands clasped. There's a file. Not an official one. Just bits and pieces, notes passed on. A woman in Kendall years back said her husband came home from a hike and wouldn't stop staring at the walls. Wouldn't sleep, wouldn't eat, just tapped, constantly. Emma's breath caught. She said he wasn't her husband anymore. Looked like him, spoke like him. But something behind his eyes was missing, or added. She wasn't sure which. What happened to him? Luke asked, voice quiet. Reeves looked at him. He disappeared. One night, just gone. No sign of forced entry. No footprints in the snow, just the front door swinging open. Silence settled like dust. Danny hugged herself. So what? You're saying it's some kind of infection? Reeves shrugged. I'm saying be careful. If things start to change, if you notice things you can't explain, come to me, not the station. Me. Why? Emma asked. Because the system won't help you. It's not built for this. And because once it's gone from the record, it's like it never was. He stood, smoothing his coat. I'll file what I can, but I'm telling you now it won't hold. He left without waiting for a reply. Jess let out a shaky breath. Well, that's reassuring. Emma stared at her phone again. No guestbook photo, no confirmation email, not even a trace in her browser history, like the cottage had never existed. But it had. She remembered the smell, that metallic tang in the air, the way the floorboards bowed under their feet, the tapping, tap, tap, tap. Luke's fingers had started again. Jess reached out, gently placing her hand over his. He stopped. Sorry, he murmured. It just feels right. Like something I'm supposed to do. Danny's voice cracked. Don't say that. He looked at her, and for a moment Emma thought he might cry, but he didn't. He just nodded. Okay. They left the hospital just after 4 in the morning. The snow had eased, but everything was muffled, blanketed in that eerie post-storm hush. The world looked normal again, too normal. Luke walked under his own power, though his gait was stiffer than usual, slower. He didn't complain, didn't speak much at all. The Jeep was still parked outside the petrol station, dusted with snow. Emma brushed it off the windscreen while Danny unlocked the doors. Inside, the heater groaned to life. Jess sat up front, twisting her phone between her fingers. Emma sat in the back with Luke. "Where are we going?" Danny asked. "Home," Emma said. "And then what?" No one answered. The drive was quiet. No music, no chatter, just the sound of tires on slush and the occasional rattle of the wind. Emma kept checking her phone, refreshing, searching for the listing, for the photo, for anything. Nothing. By the time they reached the edge of town, her battery was at 3%. She let it die. Luke shifted beside her. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "I don't know. Just sorry." She didn't say it was okay. It wasn't. But she reached out and held his hand. It was cold. Not just from the air. Cold in a way that made her stomach twist. When they pulled up outside her flat, the porch light flicked on automatically. The sight of it, warm, ordinary, comforting, made her chest ache. "Come in," she said. "All of you." No one argued. Inside, she made tea because that's what you do. Because rituals still mattered, even if they didn't work. She gave Luke the biggest mug. He held it but didn't drink. Danny curled up on the sofa. Jess stood by the window watching the street. Emma sat on the arm of the chair, tea cooling in her hands. "What now?" Danny asked. "We wait," Emma said. "For what?" Jess turned. "For it to come back?" Luke didn't look up. Emma stared into her cup. "No," she said. "To see if it ever left." Vanished. The knock came just after 9. Not a tap. Not that rhythmic, deadbeat knock they'd all come to dread. Just a single, brisk rap. Official, impatient, and very much alive. Emma opened the door to find PC Mark Reeves. Collar turned up against the cold, a thermos tucked under his arm, and a weathered notebook in his gloved hand. He looked tired. Not just lack of sleep tired, but soul-worn. Like a man who'd read something he shouldn't have in a file no one else remembered filing. "I didn't think you'd still be on this," Emma said, stepping aside. "I'm not," he replied, stepping in. "Technically." He shed his coat in the hallway, stamped the snow from his boots. The flat smelled of old tea and microwave pizza. Danny had pulled a throw over herself and drifted into the kind of half-sleep you get when your body gives out before your brain. Jess was cross-legged on the floor, scrolling through her phone with the screen dimmed so low it looked like she was reading ghosts. Luke sat by the radiator, sleeves pushed up to his elbows, staring at the pinkish skin of his forearm like it might blink first. Reeves followed Emma into the kitchen. "You didn't sleep," he said. "None of us did." He poured himself a mug of whatever was left in the pot and drank without wincing. Emma watched him over the rim of her own cup. He was still holding the notebook, but hadn't opened it. "Something's wrong," she said. "Something's missing," he corrected. She waited. "We went to the coordinates," Reeves said. "Where you said the cottage was. Where the booking confirmation pointed. Where your phone last pinged. And? Nothing. Not even the foundations. Just snow and trees. No disturbed earth. No tire tracks. No debris. Like it was never there." Emma felt her throat tighten. "You think we imagined it?" "I think it's gone," he said quietly. "In a way I don't understand." He finally opened the notebook. Inside were the printed photos she'd given him, the ones from her phone before it died. Except now they looked wrong. The cottage was there, technically, but blurred at the edges, like a smear left by a wet thumb. The roofline bent at an impossible angle. The snow around it was stippled with dark marks that, when you looked too long, began to form a pattern. 3 dots. A pause. 3 more. Tap, tap, tap. Emma closed the notebook. "We didn't fake those," she said. "I don't think you did." He drained his cup and set it down. "I also called the rental agency listed on the booking. The number rings dead. The email bounces back. I traced the listing ID, but it's not in their active or archive database. No record of it ever existing. Emma blinked. But I booked it. I paid. Did the payment go through? She stopped. I don't know, I thought so. I never checked my bank. Check now. She fumbled for her phone, plugged it into the charger. It took too long to boot. Her fingers shook as she opened the app. No record, nothing pending, nothing withdrawn, no trace of the booking or deposit. Her stomach dropped. Reeves didn't say anything. He didn't need to. From the lounge, Jess called out, "Guys?" They all gathered around her, half asleep and half afraid. She turned the phone so they could see. The picture she'd taken of the cottage, the one with them standing outside like idiots in their Christmas jumpers, had changed. The figures were still there, but their faces were smudged, as if the camera lens had fogged up only over the skin. Behind them, the cottage had become more of a suggestion than a structure. Lines where walls should be, a shape where the porch had sagged. And over it all, faint and repetitive, were those marks again. Tap, tap, tap. Danny stood up, wrapping the throw around her like armor. I don't understand. It was real. We were there. We have bruises, Jess said. Luke has stitches. The hospital... Reeves held up a hand. I checked. The hospital confirmed treatment. But the admission notes are vague. No location noted. No incident report. Just lacerations sustained in outdoor environment. No police statement was filed on site. No location linked to the wounds. Jess looked like she wanted to throw something. That's not possible. Reeves' expression didn't change. Apparently it is. Luke hadn't moved. Emma turned toward him slowly. Luke? He didn't respond. Just kept staring at his wrist. She crouched beside him. The skin there was pale. Not just pale, translucent. And under it, the faintest gray-blue webbing had begun to spread like frost under glass. I can't feel it, he said. My hand. Not really. Emma reached out, touched his fingers, cold. Too cold. Why didn't you say anything? I thought it was just nerves or blood flow. I didn't want to... He stopped. I didn't want it to be what I think it is. What do you think it is? He looked at her, and for a split second, his pupils didn't look right. Too wide, too still. I think it's still in me. No one spoke. Danny's voice cracked. We have to do something. We can't just sit here. Do what? Jess snapped. Call who? The agency doesn't exist. The cottage doesn't exist. The photos are corrupted. The bank has no record. The police can't help. What exactly do you suggest? Danny flinched. Emma stood. Okay, enough. We are not turning on each other. No, Jess said, standing too. Because one of us is changing. Luke closed his eyes. Emma rounded on her. Do you think this is his fault? That he wanted this? I think we don't know what this is, Jess said, softer now. And pretending it's normal isn't helping. Reeves cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Everyone turned. I went back again, alone, just after dawn. I walked the perimeter, took photos, set GPS markers. I even left a trail of biodegradable tape. Came back 30 minutes later. He paused. Everything was gone, tape, tracks, even my footprints. The snow looked untouched, like I'd never been there. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air heavier. So it's not just us, Danny whispered. No, Reeves said. It's the place, or... What was the place? He glanced at Luke. And maybe now it's more than that. Luke looked up. Are you saying I brought it with me? I'm saying it doesn't need a location anymore. Emma sank onto the sofa. Reeves rubbed a hand over his face. I can't file a report. I can't open an investigation without evidence. The moment I try, the systems reject the inputs. They literally won't save. But you believe us, Jess said. He met her eyes. I believe something happened to you, to all of you. But the world doesn't. Silence. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Danny whispered, I keep hearing it. Emma looked at her. At night, just faint. Like it's inside the walls. Tap, tap, tap. Like footsteps in slow motion. Jess exhaled shakily. I thought it was the radiator. It isn't. Reeves stood. I don't know what it wants, but it's erasing the trail, the history, the proof. And I think it's moving faster. Emma felt it then. Not a sound, not a sight, a shift. Like the room had breathed down in and not exhaled. Like something was waiting. Luke stood slowly. I should leave. No, Emma said immediately. I'm not safe, he said. You know that. We don't leave each other, Danny said. You might not have a choice, he said, and looked down at his wrist again. The skin was grayer now. Jess sat back down, hugging her knees. We need a plan. Emma nodded, though she had no idea what that meant anymore. Reeves looked at her. I'll check in, but this is as far as I can go. Officially, I never came here. Emma nodded. Unofficially, he hesitated. Don't trust anything that tries to comfort you. Not anymore. It's how they get in. He left with the same quiet tread he'd arrived with. The door clicked shut. Emma turned to the others. We're staying together until we know more. Danny pulled the throw tighter. What if we forget? Like everything else. Emma didn't answer. She just grabbed a pen and the back of a receipt and started writing. Names, dates, what happened. She passed it to the next person. They did the same. Jess added a drawing of the cottage, what she could remember. Luke hesitated, then signed his name. His handwriting was shaky, too neat, like it didn't belong to him anymore. They pinned the note to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a snowman. A ritual. A record. Something real. That night, no one slept properly. Emma lay on the sofa, eyes open in the dark. Somewhere in the walls, too rhythmic to be random, she heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Closer this time. Tap, tap, tap. The official closure came 2 days later, folded neatly into a white envelope, slid through the letterbox of Danielle's flat. PC Reeves didn't deliver it. Some other uniformed officer did, nameless and unreadable, like a placeholder for something the world no longer wanted to look at. Emma opened it, while Jess made tea and Luke sat by the window, his hoodie pulled low despite the central heating. Danny watched over Emma's shoulder, breath held. It read, After thorough investigation and site inspection, no physical evidence was found to corroborate the reported events. The location in question could not be verified. All digital records were inconclusive or corrupted. No further action will be taken at this time. There were no names, no apology, just a case number and a closing signature that didn't look real. Danny let out a noise that was half laugh, half snort. So that's it. We imagined it. Group hysteria. Tell that to Luke's arm, Jess said, setting mugs on the table with a clink too loud for the room. Luke didn't reply. His left hand stayed tucked under his sleeve, fingers curled too still. The skin had stopped changing for now, but the color didn't return. Not fully. It was like something had drained from it, leaving only memory behind. Emma folded the letter and slid it under the snowman magnet, next to the note they'd all signed. It looked like a shopping list now. Something domestic, safe. It wasn't. They stayed in the flat for another 3 days, barely leaving. Jess made food that no one really ate. Danny cleaned things that weren't dirty. Luke sat by the window and flinched at sudden noises. Emma kept writing things down. Dreams, mostly. Half-remembered fragments. Rhythms. One night she scribbled a sentence she didn't remember writing. They come when you're still. On the fourth day, Danny's boss called, then Jess's mom, then Emma's landlord. Life, impatient and oblivious, began to creep back in through the cracks. They had to split. Luke insisted first. "I can't stay here," he said one morning, voice flat. "You're all watching me like I'm going to crack open." "You're not," Danny said too quickly. Luke looked at her, something unreadable in his face. "I might." Jess reached for his hand. He let her take it, but it stayed limp in her grasp. "Where will you go?" "Don't know. Somewhere quiet. Maybe up north. I've got some mates who keep off-grid." Emma wanted to argue. Wanted to say no, that splitting up was the worst possible idea. That horror stories start with someone walking out the door and never coming back. But Luke wasn't in the story anymore. He was part of what came after. He left that afternoon. Emma watched from the window as he walked down the street, hands in his pockets. He didn't look back. Danny cried that night, not loud, just a quiet leak of tears that she wiped away with her sleeve like it embarrassed her. Jess didn't say anything. She just lay beside Emma on the sofa, her head on Emma's shoulder, both of them staring at the ceiling. "What if we're next?" Jess whispered. Emma didn't answer. On the fifth day, Danny went home. Her flatmate had called twice, worried about the rent. Emma watched her pack, folding clothes with mechanical precision. "Are you okay?" Emma asked. Danny zipped the suitcase. "If I answer that, it becomes real." Emma nodded. Understood. They hugged at the door. Jess drove her to the station. When she came back, she didn't take off her coat. "I should go too." Emma said nothing. Jess shifted awkwardly. "I think I need to see my family. I need to touch normal things, even if they don't believe me." "They won't," Emma said. Not unkindly, just true. Jess gave her a look. "That's the worst part, isn't it? It's not even that they won't believe. It's that they'll smile and nod and say, 'Of course, love.' And then carry on like it didn't happen." Emma nodded. "Because it didn't. Not on paper." Jess lingered in the doorway. "Come with me?" "I can't." "Why?" Emma hesitated. "Because if it starts again, someone has to know what it is." Jess didn't argue. Just looked at her for a long moment, then kissed her, soft and deliberate. Not goodbye, not quite. And left. The flat was silent after that. Emma spent the first night alone, curled on the sofa, blanket pulled tight, pen and notebook on her lap. She wrote everything again. Names, dates, details, cross-checked it with the original note. She added Luke's last words, Danny's dreams, Jess's sketch of the cottage. She copied it all by hand, twice, hid one copy in her freezer, burned the second and scattered the ashes in the sink. Just in case. She kept the snowman magnet. By the third night, the tapping returned. It started faint, behind the radiator, then inside the wall, then on the window, tap, tap, tap. Emma didn't move, didn't breathe, just listen. She told herself it was the wind, the pipes, the neighbors. She didn't believe it. On the sixth day, she went outside, walked the city aimlessly, coat zipped up to her chin, headphones in, with nothing playing. She stopped at a cafe and watched people pass, normal people, laughing, bickering, carrying shopping bags and takeaway cups. None of them looked back at her. Not the way Luke had looked back, not the way Reeves had just before he left. She passed a shop window with a Christmas display still clinging on in the New Year gloom. Tinsel, a dusty reindeer, a plastic wreath with little painted berries. She paused. There, snagged in the wreath, was something pale. She leaned in. A splinter, no bigger than a matchstick, bone white, tapered at one end. She stared at it for a long time, then reached out and gently pulled it free. It was warm. She dropped it. It hit the pavement with a sound far too loud for its size. Not a clatter, a tap. She backed away. No one else reacted. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, lights off, pen in hand. Somewhere in the flat, the tapping started again. Tap, tap, tap. She waited. It didn't stop. She turned on the kettle just to drown it out. Made tea she didn't drink. Wrote a note and stuck it to the fridge. If I forget, it's real. Trust your fear. Don't open the door. The next morning, she found the note on the floor. The snowman magnet still on the fridge, undisturbed. She wrote it again. 2 days later, the tapping came from the ceiling. She called Danny. No answer. She called Jess. Straight to voicemail. She thought about calling Reeves, but she knew what he'd say. She stopped answering her own phone after that. Sometimes when she walked past the mirror, her reflection didn't match the room behind her. Sometimes she'd wake to find her notebook open to a page she hadn't written. The handwriting wasn't hers. It was too neat, too even. She started sleeping with the lights on. One night she heard someone whisper her name through the keyhole. She didn't move, didn't breathe. The next morning, there was a smear on the floor, pale, like ash, like something had stood there, waiting. She cleaned it with bleach. Later, she found a splinter in the plug socket. The world didn't end. The streets stayed busy. The news talked about politics and storms and celebrity divorces. But Emma knew. She saw the signs. A man on the tube with gray creeping up his neck. A child tapping a rhythm on the window of the bus. Too slow, too precise. A woman in Tesco standing too still in the cereal aisle, eyes unfocused, mouthing something under her breath. Tap, tap, tap. Emma started carrying a notebook everywhere, just in case. She left notes in public toilets, in library books, inside coat pockets at charity shops. If you hear the tapping, don't answer. Don't record it. Don't acknowledge it. Just leave. She didn't know if anyone read them, didn't know if it mattered. She just knew that the hollowed weren't finished. They had never been bound to the cottage. That was only the door, not the house, and the door had opened. Now they moved through cracks, through wires, through silence. They waited in stillness, in comfort, in denial. They waited for you to forget. Emma sat on her sofa one evening, tea gone cold beside her, notebook in her lap. The flat was quiet, too quiet. Then she heard it, tap. Not from the window, not from the wall, from the fridge. The snowman magnet fell with a soft plastic thud. She didn't move. Tap. She closed the notebook. Tap. She stood. The tapping was inside now, not the flat. Her. She touched her wrist. It was colder than the rest of her. She didn't scream, just listen.